Why won't you turn off? Today I am going to install my Mini 8 handlebars on my Indian Scout 60. I ordered them last week. They came in yesterday. And I'm on my way to my wife's dance studio because it's going to be 100 degrees today and I don't have a shady place to work at my yard. I'm going to try to catch up with her here. And anyway, I am going to pull this motorcycle into the dance studio and work on it in the air conditioning. But I wanted to start off with a few shots of Pearl here with her stock handlebars. This is, if all goes according to plan, the last time that I'm really riding Pearl with her stock handlebars. Before this was a dance studio, it was a motorcycle shop. True story.
Here I have to cut away from the recorded audio because when we switched cameras, the audio didn't pick me up very well. I apologize. I'm going to have to go in voiceover for the rest of this. Start off with tools. Got my Allen wrenches. I've got a knife, a crescent wrench. Got some bits, and I use a T25 Torx bit, and we need wire cutters, super glue, and the wire ties that came with the kit. So the first thing you have to do is cut the wire ties, or the zip ties, off of the handlebars. There's 4 of them. Then you take the socket with the T25 Torx bit, go over to the left-hand control switch housing. There are 2 Torx nuts, 2 Torx bolts in there. You take both of those off. They're not on very tight because the switch housing is plastic. They're really long though, so it takes a while for them to come out. Then the switch housing comes right off. Then you take a 5mm Allen wrench and undo the 2 bolts that are on the mirror and clutch. Those will take a while. Keep a hold of it so that it doesn't fly down. Also very important to cover up your fuel tank in case it flops off. Then you switch over to the right-hand side, go back to the T25 Torx bit. There are 4 bolts on the right-hand switch housing, as opposed to the 2. Once that's loose, the switch housing and the throttle assembly will slide off. The throttle grip just clips right into it. The cables are a little tight, so it takes a little bit of effort to get the switch housing all the way off since it's got the throttle control inside. Just double checking to see that how the throttle goes back in. Back to the 5mm Allen wrench for the hex bolts on the other side of the mirror and front brake. When you take that off, you need to have it on a level surface so that it doesn't leak any brake fluid. That's what the instruction manual says. Then I had my wife hold the handlebars to take off the left grip, which is just a twist and pull off. Then it's a 6mm Allen wrench for the 4 bolts at the fork head. I do need to say right now that I am not a mechanic. This is my motorcycle and I'm learning how to do all the work on it myself. This was a pretty easy to do operation and the instructions were fairly clear. Once those bolts are off, then the speedometer comes off and the clamp, and then you can just pry off the old handlebars, and they are clear. Here's a comparison between the stock handlebars and the buckhorns, or the Mini 8s. I got the polished steel Mini 8s just because I wanted to. I wanted to have a little bit more shine on it. Yes, I know it's a blacked out bike. They look good with the forks. The little teeth that are on there help you center it really well. Then you put the speedometer back on, and I recommend getting the bolts at least started so you don't have to hold the speedometer in place. Right about here I realized I forgot a step. The first step before you put the handlebars on is to put the twist ties, the new twist ties, in. There are holes on the new handlebars, and they've got some serrated edges. They'll just pop right in, and just leave them hanging out. And then tighten up the 6mm hex bolts on the speedometer. I didn't get them really tight this first time through because I wanted to double check the height of the handlebar. Then the instructions tell me to pull out some cable and find the hole in the handlebar. There's a little tooth in the switch housing that'll fit right in there, so those aren't really adjustable as far as the twist. So I made sure that those lined up, holding the brake and everything. Pull out some slack on the cable, get the right-hand switch housing back on. It's a little tricky. Slide the throttle grip on. It clicks right into place. There's teeth inside the housing that hold it. Then you put the housing back together with the 4 T25 Torx bits you took off. The cabling I did not disconnect because these Mini Ape handlebars are supposed to use the stock cables. So you're not going to have a whole lot of play in the cables, and it's good to have an extra set of hands nearby that can help hold stuff while you tighten things up. Once you get it tightened, test the throttle for operation so it springs right back. And then I got tired of holding the brake while I was putting those Torx on, so I decided to just go ahead and put it back on with the hex bolts before I tightened down the Torx bits on the switch housing. Got it tight enough so that it didn't flop around, and then went back to tightening up the Torx bits. You don't need to put a whole lot. It's like inch-pounds of torque, just a few inch-pounds of torque, because it's a plastic housing. It does not need to be super tight, and the instructions actually warn you against over-tightening it. Then I sat down on the bike and adjusted the rear brake. The rear brake lever so that it was at the level that I wanted it. I was happy with the height of the handlebars, so I went ahead and tightened up the 6mm on the fork head and the speedometer clamp. Those have to be super duper tight. Then it's time to move over to the left hand. Well, then it's time to adjust the brake. So first I was adjusting the height, and now I'm adjusting the brake. On the left side handlebar, the hole for the switch housing's on the other side. So you take the left-hand switch housing, tighten it up with its 2 Torx bits. You can't get it out of place because that hole puts it in. The kit did not come with any grip glue. So my dealer, the Indian dealer, told me just use super glue, so I did. Let's put a few bands of super glue on the exposed handlebar, and then just slide and twist the left-hand grip back on. Gave it a good squeeze, and it's in place. Hasn't moved since. Then it's time to put the clutch back on with the 2 5mm hex bolts. Tested the level on that just to make sure that it was comfortable as far as reaching in. Then wrap the cables with the zip ties, but I did not tighten them all the way at first because I needed to make sure I wasn't pinching any cables, so rotate full left, full right. Then I can pull in the cables, tighten them up, cut off the excess, and at that point it's done. So we had to get a nice long shot of what the bike looks like with the handlebars, and I'll go back to the original audio now.
The camera was rolling every time I was working on the bike, and it recorded 52 minutes of video. So the whole job was estimated on the instructions to take 48 minutes, and it took me 52. So you give yourself about an hour, and then you'll be able to swap out the handlebars on your Scout.